I got an after hours to do. I think we're all going to say goodbye to Perry. Goodbye, Perry. Thank you for
Good
being.
night, guys. Thank you all for coming on the stream.
Thanks for being so
We're done with
wonderful.
the stream because of all the sick crap you're putting me through on this stupid show.
All right. See you later, Perry. Hey, I gotta.
See you.
I got a friend of yours sent me a song that he recorded. He's very proud of it, and I want to know what you think. I'm going to use this as the closer.
It's not a friend of mine if it's Randy Callahan.
It's not Randy Callahan.
If it's Randy Callahan, and it's not a friend of mine.
It's not Randy Callahan. I'm not going to play Rappin' Randy, but it's a nice. The guy wanted to know your opinion. He does watch the stream a lot. I just wanted to know your opinion. Anyway, everybody else, we'll see you on Friday for more PCL. See you after this song for After Hours with my dad.
Not a song that I want.
Mupi Chingo, Banga Dingy. Booby Lojak, Booby Lojak.
Mukanga Chinga Banga, Mukanga Chinga Banga, Chinga, Mukanga Chinga Banga, Mukanga Chinga Banga, Mukanga Chinga Banga, Chinga, Chinga Chinga.
All right, thanks for sticking around, everybody. In lieu of talking about Perry, I do have a special guest on After Hours. I've been talking about this for a while. It's hard to get him on After Hours because we end so late, and it's like after 1 o'clock here. It's like 1:10 New York time. But my dad is going to join us, and a couple of stories I want to get to. I will talk about. We'll do a little Perry talk after, but I want to get this first because man's got to get to bed. It was his birthday yesterday. We did go out. Anyway, Dad, welcome back to After Hours.
What was that?
I said welcome back to After Hours.
Oh, I'm pleased to be back. I'm glad that the first time went so well, and I think this will go well too.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I won't.
But yeah, it's been about a year since the last time my dad was on. My dad, by the way, happy birthday, Dad. It was.
Yes, thank you. I guess that's the only word you can use.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it was definitely strange. It's the first birthday without Mom in the picture, and I know that's very difficult. But
yes, it is.
We went out to a really nice dinner last night at a place called Il Molino in the West Village in New York City. One of the best meals I've ever had.
It was outstanding.
Yeah.
It really was outstanding. New York just has these little hidden places that, when you walk in, you're very glad you went.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you bring your wallet with you, though.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though. It was three of us. It was my friend Brian, my dad, and I, and the bill wasn't as bad as far as like high. It wasn't as high as I thought it would be. We got out of there pretty. I mean, we ordered a lot of stuff, like small stuff to split, like orders. What they do at this place, there's like full orders and half orders. So we got a full order of some things and then a half order of other things, and it would be like little half. And we did get a half order of their eggplant parmesan, which I think we all agreed was the sleeper hit of the entire night.
I could live on it. It was beyond a doubt, and I know people who make very proud of the eggplant parmesan that they make, and restaurants that are very proud of it, because it's not easy to make. It's a deceptive dish. But that was by far the best eggplant parmesan I have ever tasted in my life. And it left me with the regret that I could have just eaten that, period, and I would have been a very happy camper.
Right. Well, I think if we go back, we'll get that more. But I was more happy to kind of sample different things. Like the meatball was very good. We all got like one meatball.
Yeah, sure. That's the thing to do in a place like that, particularly for me, that I've been exposed to that for the first time. And then it completely changed my attitude about what a good restaurant is.
Right. And then my dad and I split veal ossobuco, which was another thing that was unbelievable. So anyway, it was a great night, and we were talking about a bunch of things. So I wanted to bring it up here now. You know what? I should probably lead with this because I did tease this. Now, the last time you were on, you told a great story of how who was the guy that you stayed after the in Ebbets Field after the Dodger game to kind of run around the bases and all that. Who was the guy you were with?
Oh, Jerry Keegan. He's now very sick. Wonderful guy.
Jerry Keegan, right? And then
he's one of those guys who knows everything.
Right. So
he knew where the Dodgers parked their cars, and he knew stuff that nobody else knew.
I will. Sovico's asking any fish. No, they didn't have. We didn't have fish, but they had one of the specials was Chilean sea bass, and I kind of regret not ordering it because I bet it was amazing.
Yeah, me too. You can't beat Chilean sea bass when it's it's a great dish.
And it's one of those things that you can't cook at home because
you got to be very delicate with it.
Yeah, well, like I play Parmesan. Like I don't like ordering chicken parm in a restaurant because that's kind of easy to make at home, but. Like I had an Italian girlfriend for a long time, and she would always like laugh at me if I ever ordered chicken parm in a restaurant because like how dare you? Because you could always make that easily. But anyway, no seafood. Chilean sea bass is very good. So Jerry Keegan and you. And I'll link in the description to the conversation from last year, and you can hear that story. But basically, when you were sneaking out of Ebbets Field after it was closed down, and you were climbing down. Who helped you down? It was I always forget the cast of characters.
He had said that you can't stay too long because they actually lock it up, and he knew kids that had happened to. They had to spend the whole night in Ebbets Field. As much as I was excited about going on the field, we hid behind this, it looked like a White Castle stand or something like that. We're two skinny kids. So the lights dimmed down and you're running around, and all of a sudden he said, listen, the visitor's gate is the last gate they close. Why he knows this, I had no idea, but he said, that's where we got to go, and hurry. So he runs across the field over to the visitor's side, and we end up on top of this, like, embankment. And we're looking down at this beat-up-looking metal door. That's the door to the Giants, the New York Giants, baseball teams, where they changed the locker room. And he said to me, and I won't forget it because it struck me terrifying. He goes, I think they're all gone. And then all of a sudden I see a hand. It's holding the door open. And it's Pee Wee Reese, and he's saying something, and they're all
Wait, Dad, hold on, Dad. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. I got to get rid of this knucklehead. Sorry. Hold on. Hold that thought. Hey, Perry, I'm doing After Hours with my dad. You're interrupting this great story.
All right.
What do you want?
Do I need to be on or no?
No, I think you would just ruin it.
Goodbye.
If you want to tune in, you can tune in, but...
No, I'm good night. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
Goodbye. Sorry about that, Ed. Okay, Pee Wee Reese.
Pee Wee Reese, and all of a sudden Reese comes out. Now, back then they all wore sport jackets and ties. So he's wearing a sport jacket and tie. And after him comes Vin Scully, then the announcer for the Brooklyn Dodgers. And behind him is Willie Mays. And they're laughing. And they're walking up the ramp right below us, and we put our head back. But we don't escape Willie Mays. Nothing escapes him. So he said, what are you kids doing up there? So Jerry, who looks like the All-American kid, light red hair, crew cut, excellent at everything he ever did, and a wonderful, good-natured guy. And Jerry explained exactly what we were doing. He didn't mince words. He said, we stayed in the field and blah, and they all got a kick out of that. So all of a sudden Willie said, here, come on, let me give you a hand. And he gives Jerry a hand first to bring him down. It's a pretty nice drop, to tell you the truth. And then he gives me a hand, and he drops me down. And I remember thinking I didn't like Willie Mays touching me because he's a giant. And I am about as avid a Brooklyn Dodger fan as ever walked the planet. So we get to the gate, and there's a guard there with a frown on his face, but we get out. And when we get out, Jerry Keegan said something, and I agreed with him. He said, "We can't tell anybody what we saw. We can't. They'll beat us up." And I knew what he was saying, because back then, if we said we saw Pee Wee Reese, the captain of the Brooklyn Dodgers, speaking conversationally, if you will, with Willie Mays and Vince Scully there, but he's just an announcer, nobody would believe you. They would not believe it. And we held that pact for so long that we were in a parking lot on our way to Shea Stadium many, many, many years later. And Jerry said, "Hey, Tom, remember the pact we made?" I said, "I certainly do." And we kept that pact. We never mentioned it to each other until perhaps 30 years later. And then we laughed about it. And that's how kids felt, though, that the idea that Pee Wee Reese would talk to the, of all people, Willie Mays, who murdered the Dodgers. Well, he murdered everybody, but he murdered the Dodgers. And I just couldn't imagine it. I thought it was high treason. It was like catching the president speaking to, Mayo Tse-Sung or something.
Well,
You would...
Yeah, kind of. It's very similar, but in a very off base. I remember going to see wrestling. I know we talked a little bit about wrestling. My dad's not a big wrestling fan, but I went to see. Do you remember that kid Joel that lived on our street in Brooklyn?
Yes.
Okay, so Joel was really into wrestling, and his dad had, his dad was, I forget, I don't even remember what he did. He had some kind of connection, and we went to, not MSG, went to the Meadowlands to see wrestling, and we got backstage, but not like backstage, not like in a locker room, but like, in a kind of meet and greet area, and then there were like wrestlers coming out, and on the card that night, the Iron Sheik was going up against Roddy Piper, who at the time was a good,
I remember him.
a good guy.
Only from seeing, he blazed a little bit of a path, but I don't think he ever broke out of that wrestling
Yeah,
mode.
that's exactly right. Yeah, he tried acting and tried to do other things, and he was moderately successful, but then he eventually came back. But he was great, and he was always a better heel, aka bad guy, than he was a good guy. But in this case, I would have to put this at like 1988 possibly. And
that's probably right.
And
they all want to be bad guys. Who wants to be the good guy in a, the people want to see the bad, get a,
you get
stick and knock it over somebody's head.
All the best storylines come from the bad guys. So they had a match.
Right.
They had a match that night, and Piper won, but it was a brutal match. And anyway, they come out this door, and Joel and I are sitting there, and we have. I wasn't never a big autograph guy, but there's always like people there that like they just somehow know to bring like a glossy 8x10 to have it signed or something like that. And I was never one of those. I was always impressed, like, oh, I never even thought to do that. So they come out of like the locker room or whatever together, and they're laughing like they're buddies. And at the time, I still believed that. I kind of knew that wrestling was not, 100% legit, but I still believed. It's almost like when you still want to believe that Santa Claus is real, you go maybe a year too long with it because.
Oh, sure, that stays with you a long time.
Yeah,
and they're called standards. Nobody has higher standards than kids who idolize. Let's say for me, idolize the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Right. So anyway. The Iron Sheik
as a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I just want to jump. I remember my father was an Irish immigrant from Galway, as you know, Tom, and he was given 2 box seats to the Brooklyn Dodger game that turned out to be the first game I ever saw in my life, and I was about 7 years old. And I know this because the pitcher was a guy nobody heard of, and he wasn't bad at all. He was a sly left-hander by the name of Joe Hatton. When the Dodgers had Chris Van Kyke and Rex Barney, who they all loved, he was either he's going to pitch a 2-hitter or he's going to be out of there in the first inning. But we ended up in the rotunda, which was a magical word. We knew that's where the box seats were. So we get in there. They're playing the Cincinnati Reds. Let's make it late 1940s. but not too late, maybe 48. I'm not sure. But all of a sudden, my father goes to buy a scorecard. Now, there was a little bit of a line there, and I see him right next to that little ramp that would go right behind the catches, where the catch, the home plate. I knew it. And I would never disobey my father, trust me. Not because he was fearful, but because I loved and respected him. I didn't want to disappoint him. But anyway, I run up the ramp, and then I went slow. And when I saw that field, Ebbets Field, and luckily the Dodgers were doing their little, warm-ups, and there they were. And I remember looking at it like a submarine guy, I looked around the whole thing first, the green, the blue sky. I literally almost fell to the ground. I was so stunned. And happily, I used to have dreams about it. And I couldn't wait to go to sleep so I could relive the moment, because it was so fantastic to see because it was a close place. It was very, Ebbets Field was like personal. And when I looked at it, I couldn't believe it. And then I said, I got to get back. And I could see my father searching for me. And I always gave him credit that he didn't get mad. I told him I had to look. And he said, something like, of course you did. Don't worry about it. And then when we sat down right behind third base, a guy by the name of Billy Cox then played third base. And guys my age are still mad at Ralph Kinder for not mentioning Cox's name when he was talking about great third baseman. Because back in the day, then, when the Dodgers picked up Billy Cox, we thought, oh my God, he's the greatest third baseman of all time, which is what he was considered and he lived up to. And to see the Dodgers, Jackie Robinson hit a home run and also took a classic lead, or nobody could take a lead like him, no one. I've never seen anyone take a lead. He had so much energy. He was really brilliant to look at. He was really something. But everybody was in suits and ties and their hats, and they'd yell out, this and that. I mean, I said, but my thought was, I couldn't wait to grow up, because you could still love the Dodgers. I thought maybe growing up isn't so bad after all.
Not so fast.
Not so bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I said not so fast because you didn't get to grow up to follow the Dodgers.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And, my guy was a guy by the name of Carl Furillo, who nobody today knows, but he was a 300 lifetime batting average, everything. He was great. And they called him the Reading Rifle. I loved him.
No.
And, we loved all the Dodgers. And after a while, I knew where they all parked and all the rest of the stuff.
What were your...
I didn't bother anybody for an autograph.
I want to get to the new Willie Mays story. By new, I mean story that you haven't told on here, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But what were your visual cues to seeing Ebbets Field or any baseball field at that time? Did you see it on television broadcast of baseball at the time was
I had only radio.
Only radio. Okay, so that's why it was so special.
Oh, absolutely. I would picture it to the degree I could, but I never saw the field. You had to be in the stadium to see the field, of course.
Not even in a newspaper, picture or anything?
Yeah, but, it's black and white then. They were in color. There was nothing color.
Right.
And, I had a vague idea, that's green grass. But when you see it, really see it, it's shocking. It was brilliant.
Right.
And then you look at the Dodgers. As a kid, I knew what they looked like. They were like casual, going about their business, and that crack, the major league crack of a bat that only major leaguers can make. I was stunned. I literally almost fell on the ground.
Yeah.
And I had thoughts about that for the longest time, and I couldn't wait to get back. And you could have a paper route then, which I did, Brooklyn Eagle paper route, and you could afford to go to Ebbets Field for a night game. It was $1.25 for grandstand seats, which were right behind the box seats. They were good seats. And we would get there early. A few of us, 5 or 6 of us, kids could go out at a very early age, and I wouldn't tell my parents I'm going to see the game, but they didn't. You just saw the game, and you'd sit down. And I would say, if I could just add one more thing to this, the opposing player, who caused the Dodgers great grief, but who was beloved Musial, and he's one of the most exciting players to watch of all time because he looked like a normal man who just had this extraordinary. He was very concentrated, and the man lived on second base. He was always dusting himself off after hitting a double. I mean, the man doubled his worry through everybody's hearts. They loved him. I mean, they really did. Aaron was fierce to look at too, and Kiner was menacing too. Long high fly balls that usually went into.
Yeah, I only knew Ralph Kiner as a Mets commentator. I never knew him as a player. Obviously, didn't know him as a player. I mean, I knew of his legacy, but never. Never.
He was on the same level as another guy around that era who was another line drive wonderful hitter, Johnny Mize. Both of them in the Hall of Fame, deservedly so. And but they didn't have that. They didn't have what Musial had. Everybody just loved to look at him. There was something about Musial. I remember a guy who was old enough to have gone to Yankee Stadium telling me that when he went to Yankee Stadium, he would just look at Babe Ruth in the field, even if the bases were loaded. There was something about characters like that have allure to them. People are attracted to them, and Musial was certainly one. He was a great one.
Now, how far did you live from Ebbets Field? It was walking distance for you, right? Because you lived in Brooklyn.
It was walking distance, right. When I would make a left-hand turn, and then I'm right at Grand Army Plaza, which I'd live there right now, as I've told you, if I could afford it. Prospect Park, Botanic Gardens, the whole business. You'd walk by the Botanic Gardens. People would walk through the Botanic Gardens from the other side of the park, and they'd all end up in Ebbets Field. It was very friendly, you could do stuff.
And they all lived in the neighborhood, like you'd see them like walking to the park or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But the hum of the crowd, the whole business, was all part of seeing the game. And it was very exciting, and the fact that we could pay with our own money as kids to go in and watch the game, and the roar of the crowd, oh my God, I loved it. I mean, it was really great.
So,
but still, I think I was about maybe 10 years old when we made that pact. Jerry Keegan and I made that pact. We can't tell anybody. Number one, they beat us up. And because nobody would believe it.
Well, I got to. So everybody listening now has to keep that pact also.
Yeah.
Sure, I want to move forward to a couple of months ago now. Mom passes away.
Right.
We have a wake, and the first person to enter the wake is this guy. He makes a beeline right to you. I never met him before. But, as the family does when you're at a wake, you kind of stand to the side, and the people that come in, they pay their respects to the family and so on and so forth. Maybe about 10 minutes before I think it was like a 2 o'clock start, and this guy comes in early, and he's just talking your ear off. And paying no attention to me or my sisters, just like...
He's very focused.
Very intense conversation.
He's a distinctly handsome man.
Yeah.
And he was, beyond a doubt, at least in the world that we lived in, the best baseball player we had ever seen.
Well, I want to get to that. But hold on. So he's talking to you intense, and then he kind of fades away, and he sits there. He sits in the thing. He's very respectful. But and then obviously other people came in. And we, paid their respects, and I kind of like never really thought too much about it. But then you and I went out to dinner a couple of weeks ago, just you and I just came out. I was like, who was that guy that came into the wake? And you said that's Tom Borshek, who was and he was a great ball player. Anyway, so it led to my dad. I'm gonna turn it over to you, but it led to my dad telling me this incredible story that involved Willie Mays. Now, to be fair, Willie Mays, I have seen enough documentaries and specials on him where everybody talks about how great Willie Mays was as a man, as a person, as a teammate, etc., etc. So you tell this story. I ask who Tom Borshek was, and then you go into this story, and I want to let you take it over for this.
Well, Tom Borshek looked like what he was, an outstanding athlete. He really He was outstanding. He played in the Journal American All-Stars. Journal American was an evening newspaper that was the working man's newspaper. And every year, the Journal American would get this team together. They all had to try out for it, and everybody wanted to play on this team because they would play other all-star teams throughout the country. And they were mostly high school guys, juniors, seniors, something like that. But Tom was always on that team. And he was in the Polo Grounds, and they all agreed that the New York Giants were the nicest guys. They said that the Yankees wouldn't even talk to you. The Dodgers were okay, but the Giants were delightful. So he was out shaking flies in center field, and we were in a car together then. I'll never forget it. We were on the way to Jerry Keegan's house. We were going to pick him up, and we were going to go to Philadelphia to watch Philadelphia play the Mets. And Tom said, I was so, well, he mentioned that he's playing center field, and he tried out for the Dodgers, and he got the flu. He went with Louis Aspromonte, or Joe Aspromonte. Aspromonte ended up playing for the Dodgers for like 11 years as a utility infielder. Nobody ever heard of him, like you never hear of good utility infielders, and he was that. But when he played on the same teams with Tom Borchik was the MVP. When he went down to try out for the Dodgers, he was going to make the team. There was no question about it in his mind. And everybody else who knew him. But he caught a flu or a cold. He said, I could hardly hold a bat. And he had a terrible performance. And once that happens, they never invite you back. So he never had a chance to get back. But in any event, he's playing center field, he tells me. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Willie Mays comes up to him and he said, listen, give me a workout. I'm going to go over to left field and we'll just throw, I got to warm my arm up, we'll just throw the ball back and forward. And Tom, of course, says, sure, of course. So Willie gets all the way over. Tom has the ball and he said, it's a good toss. He really had to, it wasn't just a lob throw. He had to really throw it. And Willie catches it, of course, and he throws it back to Tom, seemingly casually. But when Tom caught it, he said, my glove went back. And he said, oh, my God, I'll never make the major leagues. How could he do that? Nobody ever threw a ball to him, ever, that had that kind of impact. Then Willie comes up to him and asks him to look at his glove. So, meaning, Willie said, let me see your glove. He goes, that's too small. That's an infielder's glove. You're in the outfield. It's a different story out here. Let me get rid of that thing. And he hands him, meaning Willie Mays hands Tom his glove. And Willie said, oh, yeah, this is a beautiful Mays. This is the size and everything you should be using. Come on, let's go. I'll hit a few balls. I'll talk to you. So he comes in and he said he's chatting very amicably, as they walk to home plate. And then, somebody was batting, but as soon as he sees Willie, he gets out of the way. And Willie gets up and he goes, the first pitch, all these people that come up, they think they're going to throw the fast. He's not a kid. I'm not a kid anymore. But I can still hit the fastball. So that's my homer pitch. And then after that, I choke up a bit. Stuff like that he's talking about. And then after that's over, Tom says to him, oh, Willie, here, here's your glove. And Willie said, did I hand you my mitt? And he goes, yeah, you did, but I want to give it back to you. He goes, no, I'm not going to take it. You got that. That's your glove now. And then I asked him, of course, what anybody listening to this would be thinking, what happened to the glove? And he said his son was playing like in his bar league softball game, and someone stole it.
Oh, my God.
And he said, I decided, Tom is not a guy you would want mad at you. Trust me. He is one tough guy. And I only know that by reputation. But I know he would be, he's just got that look, But it's a clean look. It's a good look. He's a very, very distinctive guy. And for him to come to the wake, I haven't seen Tom in 25 years. Maybe that time that when we went down to with Jerry Keegan, he was in the car when Jerry told that story about the two of us, and Willie Mays helping us down, So, and yet glad he came to the wake. That was very kind of him. But he knew who Pat was too. But I got to know him very well, to tell you the truth.
Well,
but I hadn't seen him.
But
in many years.
I think that glove, and again, that's a gut wrenching. It's a great story for Willie Mays, but the gut wrenching part of losing the glove. But listen, that's on him. You have Willie Mays' glove that goes on a mantle behind glass.
Well, if I had that thought, I would not have said it.
No, of course you're not going to rub salt in the wound, of course. But I mean, that is a once in a lifetime thing, and
yes,
it's that goes on your mantle. That goes behind glass. And then if your son asks, "Can I play with it in my bar game?" the answer is absolutely not, dumbbell.
Well, that's what Willie Mays actually. Only recently. I happen to like baseball, but you know me. I'm an inveterate reader, that's for sure. And I picked up this book on 1950s baseball, or whatever. And it said Willie Mays gave gloves away rather freely, and he said he had no problem getting another one.
Yeah, of course.
So him giving, but I didn't know that, and certainly Tom didn't know that, and it wouldn't matter. He didn't just randomly give out baseball gloves. That's for sure. And it just didn't have his name on it. It was the glove he was going to use that day. He had a backup glove to use, of course. And he said it was a fantastic glove. He used it himself, Tom, for a long time. Don't forget, he was playing very serious baseball games, no question about it, all throughout his youth.
Well, that was anyway. Just to hear that because I've heard so many Willie Mays stories, just from watching documentaries and little things like that. But that one-on-one, and him taking the interest in a young player, and just it's amazing. So moving on, somebody in the chat wanted to know what business you're in. My father was a New York City fire captain. We did talk about that last time.
Right.
And later, fire safety director of the World Trade Center.
That's right. That was my first job after I came out of the fire department. And then, later I decided to be a manager of a series of buildings, like Deutsche Bank.
Right. So he wasn't in the World Trade Center on 9/11. But I want to steer past that because... by the way, this is a little side story. I thought was funny. I actually came across this last night when I got home from dinner. And do you know? Of course, you know who Henny Youngman was.
Sure, of course.
Okay, Henny Youngman. For anybody who doesn't know, he's in the movie Goodfellas. When they go to the Copacabana, he's the comedian performing, and he's the one. Take my wife, please. My wife said, it's always my wife jokes, My wife said, take me somewhere I've never been before. And I said, try the kitchen.
Right.
That's his thing.
That's still a classic joke.
I can't do an impression of him, but he's like, take my wife, please. So he passed away in 1998, but he never retired. And I heard this little anecdote about him, and I figured you'll appreciate this. So he lived in Manhattan in his later years. And on weekends, he would get dressed up, put a suit on, and he would take his fiddle. Because a fiddle was a prop for him. He always had a fiddle on stage.
Yes.
And
Jack Benny's violin.
Yeah. And so he would get dressed up, he would get his fiddle, and he would go around to various hotels that had banquet rooms and big banquet halls on a Saturday or a Sunday. And he'd look at the directory in the hotel to see what event was taking place on any given day. Mostly weddings, but occasionally a bar mitzvah or graduation, etc., etc. The kind of thing you would host in a big ballroom like that. So he'd go right into these rooms while the reception was taking place, and he would ask to see the father of the bride, let's say, or whoever was paying for the affair, but mainly the father of the bride. And
it's always the father of the bride.
Right. So
that's going to change. It should change. Women's lib has changed an awful lot of things. But
let's not get caught up in the weeds. So the father of the bride would come over to Henny Youngman, And he'd be by himself, by the way, not with an agent, not with anybody. And he'd all be dressed up. He'd have his fiddle. And the father of the bride would come up and he'd go, "Hi, I'm Henny Youngman. I'll do 10 minutes for $100." At the wedding, at the reception. And that's what he did. And he worked all these rooms and he'd get $100 because who's going to say no to that? Henny Youngman's there, and he's dressed up, and he has his fiddle. Now you're the father of the bride. He comes up to you, and says, I'm Henny Youngman. I'll do 10 minutes for $100. Are you gonna turn him away?
I would, yeah.
You would. Well,
yeah, no, I don't like I don't like entertainers. I always feel people can entertain themselves.
So you would send him on his way. You would say
I would have said thanks a lot, but no thanks. The people don't need it. That's to me an interruption.
Well, also I don't know how
should be allowed. That's why I don't like loud music.
I don't know how well "Take My Wife Please" would work at a wedding either. But apparently he did very well on that.
Oh, I'm sure he did. And there's guys like that. They're not doing it for money. He can't live outside of the microphone and making the crowd laugh. It's a fatal flaw of many of those old-time comedians.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I thought that was funny, but I want to get back to something that we were talking about this last night. So, I think it's the 18th of. Let me just look at the calendar real quick. Okay, 2 weeks from tomorrow, Tuesday. Well, depending on where you are, it's already tomorrow, but we do have an international audience. But so on the 18th, movie theaters across the country are playing Superman the movie, the 1978 Christopher Reeve Superman the movie. It turns 45 years old this year, if you can believe it. It came out in December.
I can't believe that.
1978.
I'm literally shocked at that.
So I had asked my dad because I want to take Teddy, who's 5 years old, to see Superman, because I was about 4 years old when that movie came out, and it's it's in my top 5. It's one of my all-time favorite, not only all-time favorite movies, all-time favorite experiences of being in a theater. And I do remember seeing it with you, and I wanted to share this story because I did bring it up.
That's a good distinction you just made. I agree with you.
So we went to and we saw it like maybe the second weekend, I want to say. I can't be precise, but it was definitely on a Saturday, and it was definitely cold. It was December. It was Christmas time in Brooklyn, and there was this theater called the Brook Theater, which was Flatbush and Flatlands, the intersection there. And it was down this block from the school I went to, St. Thomas Aquinas Boys School, which is no longer there. Neither is the theater. The theater's long gone. But we went to see Superman, and my dad was a big Superman fan, and I want you to talk about that. He listened to Superman on the radio, read the comics, and when the movie was promoted. Now I don't remember the promotion of the movie, but I remember when the movie came out, the whole tagline is "You'll believe a man can fly," and it was the first production of Superman that really just showed Superman in a real way. So the movie starts off, of course, tells the story of Superman. Superman is born on Krypton, is Kal-El.
It's a great intro.
Marlon Brando plays Jor-El, his father,
right.
And he's a scientist, and he predicts Krypton's going to explode, and all these other dummies that are on the board of console, whatever, they don't believe Jor-El. Nothing's going to happen on this planet. You're not permitted to do anything or leave. Anyway, he sends his only son in a rocket ship to the planet Earth. And then the planet it blows up, and the rockets through space. Forgive me if I'm telling anybody the story of Superman that everybody has heard, but then he's raised on Earth and becomes Superman. But the movie takes its time. The movie, the guy who steals the movie in many ways is what's his name? Glenn Ford, who plays Pa Kent, and he goes through that, and then Superman eventually finds his way to create the Fortress of Solitude, And there is a scene in the movie, anybody who's seen the movie, where young Clark Kent is talking to Jor-El, Marlon Brando, for the first time. And that goes on for a while, and he tells him all about what his powers are going to be and everything. And when it cuts back, it is Christopher Reeve in the Superman suit. And I will never forget this as long as I live. I'm sitting, and this theater is packed, by the way, packed.
Oh, I remember it being packed, yes, when I took you.
Packed. And there's a scene in the movie where Christopher Reeve, as Superman, flies to the screen and flies directly to the screen and then tilts off and veers off. And I'm telling you, in that theater, and I remember this, I was 4.5 years old, there were audible gasps in the theater by people witnessing that. But you, particularly, you were sitting right next to me, and I'll never forget this. You audibly said, "Oh my God." Like you were just dumbfounded by the fact that you were seeing Superman flying.
Now, the thing is, as a kid, as a big radio listener, even more than all my friends, I was a fanatic radio listener, and I would never miss Superman, who was then, his voice on the radio was Bud Collyer, who later became, the Bud Collyer of quiz show fame. And a very crisp voice, and the idea of seeing, I pictured him in my mind flying around, and this is way before he became the mild-mannered Superman of TV fame. This was, the original, when he flew, and he's flying, I was absolutely stunned, and I thought to myself, I'd give anything to be a kid and see it with a kid's eye. But I kind of, to tell you the truth, allowed myself to do that. And I thought they stayed very, very true to the Superman thing. But having mentioned that, I got to mention this one episode. It took place on the radio, and I'd give anything, if anybody listening to this knows somebody who heard the same episode. It was advertised. It was on a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, late 1940s. And they said, all right, kids, listening to this radio show, it's going to be really special. So I didn't go out. It was a beautiful day. I did not go out. I'm listening to WJRD. I'm almost positive that's the station. But nevertheless, all of a sudden, Superman, for some stupid reason, that's one of the things I think I liked about him. He did things that, a moron wouldn't do.
And what time of day did Superman come on the radio?
What's that?
What time of day did Superman?
Normally he was on at about 5 o'clock, 5:30.
Every day?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Monday,
but
Wednesday,
this was
Friday.
a Sunday show.
So this is long before. There's no TV. This is radio.
This is radio. Oh, the TV wasn't even in the, even maybe the 10-inch TVs were owned by a couple of people, but this was in the 40s. Maybe 50. I don't remember. I really don't. But I will tell you this. All of a sudden, he's going down to the bottom of the hull of the ship because he has to open this box. Now, every kid listening knows that kryptonite is in the box. And I was in my living room, usually lying down, listening to the radio, and I'm thinking to myself, don't open the box. Now, they milked it, Bud Collier's voice is going, oh, there's the box. And goddamn well he's going to open that box. And you're screaming, don't open the box. But he does. And he's going, oh my God, I can't. He's weak. He's like the rest of us. He's like a real mortal person. And then all of a sudden you hear a hatch open up. And you hear, over here, Robin. I go, Robin, what's going on here? All of a sudden, Batman and Robin come down. They were somehow alerted that Dumbo Superman had gone down and opened up the goddamn box. Now, kryptonite doesn't bother Superman at all, but that's not explained.
You mean Batman or Superman?
Batman, it doesn't explain what he did with the kryptonite, but he knew that kryptonite means we better get him up on top. He probably said something like top deck or something, and I'm thinking, I'm listening to Batman's voice and Robin. And they carry him up all the way to the top, and then they have a conversation. And I recall directly that Batman invited Superman, why don't you come and visit me and God? I said, they're friends. They know each other. Oh, my God. I was so excited. I was so excited that when the show ended, I ran right out the door, and around the corner, there's a candy store there that we all hung out in front of called Herman's. And I run there, and I am telling everybody, you won't believe what I just heard. Try to be as cool as could be. And they said, well, what do you got? You know, that type of stuff. I said, I just heard Batman and Robin save Superman. Get out of here. No one would believe it because, to my knowledge, to this day, Batman and Robin, at least on the East Coast, I don't know about the West Coast, Batman and Robin were never seen nor heard on the radio. I often wanted to get a copy of it because it's really historical, and it absolutely happened. I remember every detail of it. I mean, I was like a hero. You know, they would say, what did they say? What did they say? Over and over. They said that? Really? I said, yeah, they're friends. I swear to God. Batman, they invited them to Gotham. Oh, my God. It was like sensational. I was like, a newscaster with a breaking story. I was so glad I stayed home to listen to that episode of Superman. When you picture them in your head doing all the things he's allegedly doing, and then I went to that movie, have you see it?
Right.
I was interested in it from the beginning because it was well done. But when he starts flying around, and Christopher Reeve, by the way, was the all-time perfect Clark Kent and Superman. Some guys may look like Superman, but they don't look like Clark Kent. He looked like both. He was perfect. His voice, everything.
Yeah, I often
Absolutely
say
perfect.
that other people may play Superman, but Christopher Reeve was Superman.
That's a good way of putting it. I would agree with that.
In fact, he was so Superman that DC Comics kind of, for that period of time, right after the movie came out, they kind of redrew Superman to look more like Christopher Reeve.
I don't doubt that because he did. If you look at the comic books, they kind of change. But I had a 50-cent allowance, and I spent every penny of it in Jake's candy store, and I would buy 5 comic books. They were a dime. And if Superman was there, that is always a choice. Generally, Batman and Robin was too. But I liked all my comics. And if you don't mind, I just want to say this one thing because I know the answer to a question about what happened to all these old comic books. I know what happened because where I lived was Plaza.
How many comic books would you say you had at any time?
Hundreds, because I was the only guy that made friends with what we call the rich kids. They lived on Plaza Street. And of course, their mothers would buy them whatever they wanted. So they all had tons and tons of comic books. And most of them didn't. I loved them. I loved every one of them. So when they all moved to 1-acre zoning or 2-acre zoning in Connecticut, they gave me their comic books. And I used to keep them after I read them. We didn't know what to put them. We had a small apartment, in Brooklyn. But you had what's called a bin. And the bin was in the basement. And every apartment had a bin. I mean, where are you going to put your sled? It snows, and you want to take your sled up to Prospect Park. You put it in the bin. There was no room in an apartment for anything like that. So I used to keep my comic books, all of them. I mean, I love Donald Duck. I loved them all. I had hundreds of them in mint condition. I would read and reread them. And then the New York City Fire Department, correctly, they were having fires in the basement because the bins were always in the rear. And, when they went on fire, I mean, the brutal beatings they must have taken back then to try to get to the heart of the fire. I mean, when you go down with a line in a place like a cellar, the best color you want to see is red because in front of you there's just nothing but black heat, and you just follow the heat. It's brutal. So they said, you got to get rid of the bins. And they called it the bin law. And that was about 1951. And they got rid of all the bins. And my my father didn't want to tell me that I had to get rid of them. All of a sudden, I came home, and he said, the comic books are gone. The bins are gone. And I said, what'd you do with them? He goes, the garbage men picked them up.
Oh,
or
my
whatever.
God.
Yeah, but by then, I was pretty much through with my comic books. Nobody understood. No one. Anybody who, I defy anybody, no one understood. It would be like a Coca-Cola bottle. No one would appreciate that a real Coca-Cola bottle that you just finished might be worth something.
Right.
Because there were so many of them. So all the comic books were taken all within weeks. Everybody had to get rid of anything that was in their bins. And only because my father was friends with the super were we allowed to keep our sleds down there and a few other things, you know. But those comic books were taken away by the bin law. So when people say, gee, I really don't remember what happened to them, you weren't allowed to keep them in the bins. So if you lived in a new law tenement like I did, I bought some up. Yeah, now that I think about it, I did bring some of them up, maybe about 40 comic books. And after a while, I had no interest in them. I might have thrown them out myself. I don't remember it, but I love my comic books.
Well, there was not a collector mentality back then. You weren't like, you know, and that's why that's why comics of that era are worth so much today, because there's so few of them in circulation.
Even the covers, like if you even a cover of a Donald Duck 1947 comic book. A person who can afford to pay $200, $300 for it, it can take him back to when he was a kid. The colors of it, the whole business. I understand it completely. I really do.
Yeah.
In fact, for a birthday, it wasn't even a birthday, a friend of Pat's came over to the house. She was going to sleep over. We would all go to a wedding the next day. She bought me a Roy Rogers comic book.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Next to the Brooklyn Dodgers, I always thought the perfect essay I've ever seen was Pete Hamill wrote an essay on the perfect day, and he said a perfect day you have to be 12, because at 13 testosterone sets in, and all of a sudden you want to be on an island with Marilyn Monroe, and she actually wants to be there with you. So he goes, that doesn't count. You got to be 10 or 11, and then for me, he said, my perfect day began out in the West with Roy Rogers and Trigger. No Dale, no, just him and Roy and a few of the guys in the bunkhouse talking and maybe rides a horse.
Speaking of Westerns, you did mention something else last night. I just think this is a great story because, of course, it's so kind of strange to hear it in context now. But talk about... And I don't know what year it would be, but definitely not the year of release. But talk about the first time that you saw The Wizard of Oz. Now it was released in '39, but what year did you see it?
Oh, every Saturday at 12 o'clock, there was a National Theater on Washington Avenue, which was about a 3 or 4 block walk for me. And every Saturday at 12 o'clock, for 12 cents, they would show 10 cartoons, like a Flash Gordon serial, and then 2 cowboy, Les LaRue. It could be anybody. Happily, it would be Roy Rogers, but, they had to be very sparing on that. And so we would go every Saturday. There'd be about 6 or 7 of us. And every kid online, we started to recognize each other, And every kid online had exactly 12 cents. I mean, the lady who collected the money didn't have to make change. And then I get there, and there's this big long line that went down to the corner and wrapped around. I've never seen that. And there were adults on the line. And I went, what the heck's going on here? So I told the guys, hold my place, I walked around, and I see The Wizard of Oz. And I go, I never heard of it. None of us heard of it.
Now, what year is this?
I don't know.
Guess
again, late night. Look, for me to be going to the National Theater.
So 49, maybe late 40s.
Yeah, late 40s.
Okay, so it's about 10 years after the movie came out, but now it's like everybody's heard of The Wizard of Oz. But back then, there's no TV or anything, so you've never heard of it. It was not the popular thing that it's now.
At all. So I came back and I said, hey, I think this is going to be pretty good. I conjured up that the wizard was a Gabby Hayes kind of ranch owner that was named Oz. And I said, there's a big crowd here. This got to be great. Now, when you went in there, they had these like usherettes, two gray-haired ladies with long flashlights, and they were banging. I mean, they were like ex-prison guards, I always thought. You know, they were rough. But they were dealing with a rough crowd. So the children's section would not be in the middle. Like, I could go to 14 Saturdays in a row, and no kid would be sitting in the middle. But on this day, the two sides where the kids would sit were all filled up, and they were starting to put people in the middle. And I got away from my friends, you know, and I ended up exactly in the perfect movie theater spot, the middle seat in the middle aisle.
And just to be clear, you think The Wizard of Oz is this big epic Western that you're going to see?
I was positive it's going to be a Western. As a matter of fact, I could still hear the groan. Everybody thought it was, when it first started, here's this farm, and there's a girl in it, and we thought it was like Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farms or something, you know. And, you know, we were used to black and white, you know, so that didn't bother us at all. And the story was kind of interesting, but you could almost hear groans all over. The kids, come on, where are the horses? You know, where's the corral? Well, you know, give us somebody here. Oh, my God, I was so disappointed. And then when she opens up the door that used to lead into her living room, and it opens up into that colorful world of Oz, we were doomed. I still recall it as being, I'm entering that world with her. When I came out of that movie theater, it was my first, like, experience of that kind, of being overwhelmed. It was similar to Lawrence of Arabia. When I saw it for the first time, I had that feeling too, but not in the same way you can. You know, Pete Hamill is right. There's certain things that happen before you're 12 or 13 that live vividly in your mind because your focus is entirely on that. You know what I mean? And I can. One of the reasons sometimes I look forward to that scene is I could put myself right back in that seat again. And when I came out of that theater, I wasn't the same person. I have never had a movie experience like it in my life, and I've seen many, many movies. I never, absolutely never. And I was very glad we didn't know it. I don't think one kid sitting there, if they knew that that movie was The Wizard of Oz, they wouldn't have come.
Right.
They're there to watch Roy Rogers. That's what they're there for, or somebody like him. You know, they would show 1930s cowboy guys, you know, Ken Maynard. Oh, we could watch it. We were very familiar with the 1930s movies.
Right. Well, I mean, that leads back to, you know, my experience watching Superman, you know,
Exactly.
sitting with you, because
Yes.
I will never, I mean, and I'll listen, you know, the year prior, you took me to see Star Wars, and I remember that. I was very young, but I remember it, and Star Wars is still one of my favorite movies, but not as far as childhood. I remember seeing Pinocchio for the first time. That was the first movie I ever saw, was Pinocchio.
That was the first movie.
And I remember being utterly
That was a frightening movie.
Frightening is the exact word I was going to use. It's a frightening movie. When they go to that amusement park and they turn into donkeys, right. I remember being chilled to the bone.
and the children turning into donkeys. Oh,
yeah,
that's
and I remember everything about that. I remember where we saw it, and it was the College Theater near Brooklyn College,
right, exactly.
Way up on Flatbush, right past the old IRT line, and it was a cold and rainy. I think it was around this time of year.
It was packed again.
Yeah.
You know, it was. You got to remember, we didn't get to see movies like that. Any of the Walt Disney movies, we always thought we were screwed, because when the cycle came along, we would never get. I don't think I saw any classic. Walt Disney movie, Fantasia.
Right. I still to this day I've never seen it. I've never seen Bambi. I've never seen Fantasia. But now it's different now, obviously, because like let's say somebody Teddy's age wants to watch a Disney movie. They just go on Disney Plus and they play any movie they want. But Disney had a very lock and key, and again, this is before home video also. But they would release their films every 5 years. So every 5 years in rotation.
But
not when you were young, but I'd say in like the 70s, 80s, Disney movies would come out. So they do Cinderella, Pinocchio, Peter Pan was another one, which I always thought was overrated. But Snow White was another one, and they'd be curated every 5 years. One would come out. And then it would play in the theater and then be locked up again for another 5 years. Home video changed that considerably. Right. But getting back to Superman, I remember sitting there. I remember the smell of it. I remember what the weather was like outside. And I remember you gasping at various points. Even the scene where later on where Superman reveals himself for the first time because Lois Lane is in a helicopter and the helicopter is having problems and it's hanging off the side of the Daily Planet building. And for the very first time, Clark Kent comes out and he sees it and he's got to quickly change into Superman. He gives an eyeball up and down to like a modern at the time phone booth. He realizes he can't change in there, which was always the trope of old Superman in the comics and even the TV show. And he goes in the revolving doors, and he comes out as Superman. And by the way, the music in Superman also is another supporting character. It is the absolute best soundtrack in any movie ever.
Yes, they got it right.
The music swells.
Take either a book or some experience, and they really, they really do as good a job as the author did. You got to remember. When your mind, as a kid, when you're listening to radio, you create the whole scene in your head.
Yeah.
It's very vivid, It's very, very vivid.
So.
And you're out in the West 1 minute, and like Straight Arrow was a big radio show when I was a kid. And it always started with the sound of an arrow, the whole business.
What were some of the other radio shows you'd listen to on the regular basis, obviously aside from Superman?
Let me think. You know what I liked as a kid, because it was a kid and he lived in a ranch? Bobby Benson and the B-Bar-B Riders. That was a big show.
Never heard of that.
And no, of course not. Captain Midnight was such a big show that we would play it on the street, and you would take turns being Captain Midnight. The storylines we would remember, and you would play them out. And everybody would get assigned. You know what I mean? We would do that all the time. During the Second World War, pilots were naming their planes Captain Midnight. He was very big. And then he went to television. And one of the kids, Greek kid, of course, he had a television set. And it was, again, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was Captain Midnight. And we were all sitting there, and this nitwit gets on with this Art space hat, very much like Art Carney had in the bit that he does with Gleason. And he says, "Hi, kids, this is Captain Midnight." And we went, "Oh, my God, that's not Captain Midnight."
Right, they cheesed it up. So somebody in the chat wants to know, did you listen to Gunsmoke at all?
Gunsmoke was great on radio. Absolutely great. And the guy that did the voice was a heavy-set guy who later became famous for Cannon, the show Cannon.
Oh yeah, what's his name? Conrad? Was it?
Yes, that's it. He was the voice of
Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
Was it Matt Dillon?
No, that was very good. That was very good.
Was it Dillon? Was it Matt Dillon? Was that the character's name?
Matt Dillon. Yeah.
Right. Not to be William Conrad. That's the guy's name.
William Conrad. Very good. And he was the voice. I'll tell you, that was a good show. There was quite a few of them good. The Fat Man was good. There was a lot of. The Lone Ranger was in a class by itself.
And how many of these old radio shows would you say translated well to television when that eventually happened?
You know what? They didn't do a bad job with the Lone Ranger, quite frankly. And I would say very, very few others. They would do, Blondie and stuff like that, cartoon characters.
Our Miss Bliss was another one I remember.
Yeah, Armish Brooks was very good.
Armish Brooks. Yeah. With Richard Crenna.
Richard Crenna Diana and the girl. I can't think of her name. She's very funny.
Dale. Was it Dale?
Eve Arden.
Eve Arden. Sorry,
Eve Arden. She was very, very good, and that was a big radio show. Oh, for a very, very long time. It's so long ago for me, But I would spend, there was a debate whether I'm going to go home and listening to the radio or if we were playing stickball or something. But when it got dark in the fall, we would every kid would just go home and listen because everybody had a radio. Nobody had television sets yet. Because to get a good TV set, you had to put the aerial up on the roof, and that was a job. My father used to do that for people for free, and he used to drape the thing down. Oh, it's a million years ago, but it's not. It's not. It only seems that way.
Right. Well, somebody said that that there might be. I think it was Franklin said it. There might be actually I'm looking it up right now. That Superman episode actually might be on YouTube, and I'll see if I could send it to you. It'd be weird to play it here because it'd be a little bit strange feedback, but I'm looking into it. It's like Batman on the Adventures of Superman. 1945 is the year. Now you could have maybe heard it. Let me just. Hold on.
Could be.
I just want to skim through this a little bit. Let me know if you can hear it, and let me know if you can.
Than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman.
Now that's the one. That's the show, right?
No, but what I'm trying to say is the announcers, they all had great voices, the radio announcers, and they all had projected for kids, particularly at the opening, a sense of urgency, which we picked up right away.
Let me just skim through this for a second. I just want to.
You're not going to find a Batman.
Hold on. Give me
much better than I am.
Give me 1 second.
Outside again.
Sakes alive. You know where we are? Where? Right behind the Hall of Mirrors.
What?
Ah, that's all. That was a couple of years ago. He's got white hair and dark glasses. Mr. Hemingway. Ooh. I can't.
No, that doesn't sound like the one. But I'm gonna go on a mission and find that one because you've explained it in enough detail where I feel like I can maybe find.
But you have to listen with the ears of a kid who's never heard Batman and Robin's voice before.
Oh, of course.
No one did. They were never, ever, ever on radio. And if you see, like, I think there was a movie made. I saw parts of it. I mean, they must have spent about $14.32 for the costuming.
Well,
and it was terrible. You knew, you have to have a certain credibility. It's just like a book. If it opens up and it can get you in, if you're a trained reader, you're right in there. But if it's poorly done, you close it up. It offends you. So when they did Superman so well, and even that for some reason they must have had a problem with doing Batman and Robin. I'm sure they tried because they were very popular. The comic book was very, very popular, Batman and Robin.
So when because I remember, and again, I never had a TV in my bedroom growing up, of course. But I remember going to the library and we'd rent. This is aging me, but we'd rent records, and
right.
A lot of and the cover of the record would be Superman. And I didn't realize that they were old radio shows, but there would be records of these old Superman radio shows, and I would listen to them on like my Fisher Price record player in my room, and it would be like Superman doing something. And whatever, and I didn't know as a 7-year-old or something, let's say, that I'm listening to a radio show from the 1940s until like one day, like you came in my room telling me dinner was ready or whatever, and I was in the middle of playing one, and I kind of remember the episode because they didn't have that many records available. This one was, it was bank robbers that were hiding in a Lois Lane. I'm going to paraphrase this, but it was like Lois Lane was doing a story where she was tracking these bank robbers and she was following them, and then they catch her following her, and of course they bring Lois Lane to their hideaway, which is in some cave somewhere. Now, where they find a cave outside of Metropolis, who knows? But that's always the worst move for a bad guy in these, especially these Superman radio shows, is you don't want to mess with Lois Lane because then Superman's going to come. Stay away from Lois Lane. Like, that's the last person you want to kidnap.
Kids figured that out too. You'd have a discussion about that, you know. There was a lot of things that we saw through. Why did he do that for?
Right. So I'm listening to in this conclusion, and Superman had busted in the cave and was fine. And you stopped and you're like, oh, you had a flashback. Like, I remember this episode. I remember listening.
Very well be.
I remember listening to this episode, and it kind of ruined it for me. I was like, oh, I didn't know this was old. I thought this was I thought this was fairly contemporary, but I still would listen to those. But that's funny. And then, of course, there's a lot of them on YouTube. There's other areas. You can go online and download a lot of. I think those, more so than classic TV, and I mean like a very early TV when it was like TV was a live medium. There's so many things that just were not preserved because they didn't think of it as somebody would want to watch this again ever.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the first 10 years of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson when he was in New York don't exist because they would literally tape over the episodes to save money on having to buy new videotapes.
Yes. That same kind of thinking was so pervasive in the industry. I mean, they nickel and dimed everybody, and to their own detriment, But I'm not saying that every episode of Superman is worth listening. All I'm saying is that when you were a kid then, you were listening in a certain kind of way that doesn't exist anymore today. Even a kid isn't as innocent, if you will, as we were. I mean, I listened with rapt attention. I wanted to get every detail in. And I never, ever heard a radio episode of almost anything that I didn't like. You know what I mean? I liked them all. I was a big, big fan.
Well, what was the programming on radio like? Because, obviously on television, there's a certain scheduling. Like this time period has, kids stuff. Then you get into news, and then maybe adult shows. So, if Superman was on at what time of day?
I would say about 5 o'clock, maybe 5:30.
Okay, so that's about right. That's like kids hour. So what would be on radio at like 8 p.m. and later? Would there be adult shows?
Then you'd have the Jack Benny show or something like that.
Okay.
More like adult stuff.
And would you listen to that with your parents, or was that just...
No, I wouldn't. But a little later, if there's a good radio show on, I might listen to it, sure. Even in my... when you become a pain in the ass teenager, anything that your parents do, you don't want to do.
No, right. I'm just saying that because I've seen like a movie that takes place in the 50s, and like the family would be listening to, let's say, a Jack Benny or whatever, Sid Caesar or something.
You have a good point there, but I don't know. I don't know.
Now, I think this is before your time, but somebody was asking, do you remember ever listening to the famous Orson Welles War of the Worlds thing when it was live?
That was a bit before my time.
Yeah, that was late 30s. And for anybody who doesn't know, that was... And, it's funny because, again, it's very famous, and you could hear it. That's online. It's Orson Welles is reading the H.G. Wells, no relation, story of War of the Worlds. Very famous story. Aliens come down and attack, and he's reading it like it's a live news story, like it's really happening.
Number one, he had a great voice. He was a brilliant young man, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And if you listen to it, which I did a number of years ago, it almost has that credibility. See, radio had that ability where you fill in the details. You know what I mean? They don't say, like, if Clark Kent walks in a room, they don't describe the room. he'll just say, "Walked in the living room," and you picture the living room,
Right.
the furniture, the whole business. You picture everything. Your
Right.
imagination does the work.
Well, but he was if you ever listen to it, he's like he's very specific. He's like, and now the Martians have landed in New Jersey,
Oh, he
and
knew what he was
they're
doing.
and it is like so the people listening to this, and I don't remember the year it was. It had to be like late 30s, very early 40s at the most. Offhand I don't know, but
It was late 30s.
so
Yeah, it was like
but
37,
but
38.
it created a panic because people listening to it thought that this was really going on. And I remember hearing about the War of the Worlds thing, like maybe sometime when I was a kid, and like, oh yeah, Orson Welles did this thing where everybody, and I remember thinking, wow, what a bunch of dummies for actually thinking that was real. But of course, that's a kid in the '80s thinking that I'm so desensitized to things, and you got to put
That's
yourself.
exactly right.
You got to put your,
Yeah.
I'm growing up with television and all this stuff, and you got to go back to the mentality. If you ever listen to it, like put on the Orson Welles. There's no real way to time travel, of course, but there are certain ways where you could put yourself back in time. And if you're ever like at home and you go on YouTube and you look up the War of the Worlds, now turn off the monitor when you play it, but just sit there and listen to Orson Welles do War of the Worlds. And I'm telling you, you could listen to that and
I have.
and put yourself in the
And I agree
position
with you.
of somebody. Let's say you're driving your car on like over the George Washington Bridge or whatever, and you're driving home and you're hearing this radio broadcast. You've got to be losing your mind.
Right. Exactly. It was that well done. That whole cast was perfect. You know?
Just
And I don't know, because I didn't experience it myself, whether or not the reaction was quite as traumatic as they're making it out to be. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But
Sure.
when I listen to it, I can see, I can ascertain that they crafted it in that manner. You know what I mean? Because they had to make it real.
yeah.
I mean, the man is a director, so the idea is to make a scene as real as possible.
Yeah.
It is perfect. I'll tell you what's a perfect movie for that is the Last of the Mohegans, the last one that was made.
Oh,
with,
Daniel
I think,
Day-Lewis. Daniel Day-Lewis, directed by Michael Mann. Yeah, great. A very underrated movie. Very underrated.
That is so correct. It's historical basis, but when there's a peace treaty made there, it was conducted exactly. They wanted to get it right. So somebody watching that is sharing an experience. If you come in with it with the right experience and look at it, they're sharing an experience of what it was like and the agreements that were made. And it gets the Indians right, too. I mean, you didn't want to fool around with them, and they're certainly not going to pay attention to a peace treaty, that's for sure.
Right.
I mean, you almost can't say that today, but that's the facts of the matter, and they're not going to pay attention. Those frontier people were afraid of those Indians for a good reason.
Right.
I mean, you didn't want to be captured by them. That's for sure.
Well,
that's a lot of ground to cover here tonight.
it is, and I kept you. I did say we're going to try to keep it to 30 minutes. We've been on for over almost an hour, almost an hour and a half. But look, I'm very much looking forward in a couple of weeks to seeing Superman in the theater with you and Teddy. So
I could see it again.
You're seeing it again. I'm getting you a ticket.
Okay.
And
I'm in.
how are you not gonna? Listen. So my dad is not necessarily a movie guy, even though he appreciates movies. But you're not a big revisit a movie kind of guy. Like you experience it once and you kind of move on. And some people are like that. But I remember a couple of years ago where.
Well, wait a minute. Let me stop you.
Yeah.
I heard you say you didn't see The Searchers.
I didn't. It's one of my it's one of my big misses where I have not seen John Ford. It's on my list though. If that ever plays, believe you me, I will be there with bells on.
Yeah, that is one great movie.
John Ford. It's on my list of major.
Outside John Ford directed part from the when they do the studio shots.
Right. No, absolutely. I know that's a big thing on my movie resume that I have to see The Searchers, and it's on there. But what I was going to say is there was a couple of years ago where and this is maybe it was like 2019 or whatever. It was I was in the apartment at the time, and I said to you, hey, the theater, close to you. Yeah, and they were playing all over because I think it was one of these anniversary things where they re-release a movie. And I said, Lawrence of Arabia is playing. Now, I had seen it many times in the theater. You had, never with you. I think we had rented it on VHS, which is a criminal offense to watch Lawrence of Arabia. To watch Lawrence of Arabia on like a VHS pan and scan or whatever. But this is. So I said, hey, Lawrence of Arabia's playing, and your first thing is like, you know what? I've seen that so many times. I couldn't possibly see it again. I've seen it. I saw it when it came out, and I saw it here. And I said, Dad, it never plays in a theater. It never plays. This is a rare. I said, just go with me. And you begrudgingly went, and we went, and again, the theater was sold out for this. And I remember we got it. We had really good seats. We sat down. The overture starts to play. That's an old movie thing where like the music plays before to a black screen before the curtain even opens. And when the opening credit and I always love the opening credits of Lawrence of Arabia because it's got that great overhead shot of
it's a great shot.
Peter O'Toole fixing up his motorcycle, and it's got that wonderful score playing. And as soon as that starts playing, you turn to me and he goes, you said, I'm already transfixed. I'm already like completely into this. And then
one of the best casts of all time.
And then when it gets to the desert, when it's on the big screen, I remember you turned to me like you said to me, I am so sorry for saying that I didn't want to see this because this is like seeing it for the first time. Like it was like a rejuvenation of this great film.
And I remember saying that to you, and I was right. And it was a great experience.
And I think Superman is going to be the same way. And about anybody out is playing Tuesday, April 18th. It's playing all over the country, North America at least. Maybe, well, because it's the 45th. Well, you know what it is? They're releasing a big box set of all the Superman movies now. Really, the only great one is the first one, but
hands down, I agree with you. 100%.
There's other ones that are okay, but. So they're re-releasing it, and I think in honor of that, they're putting it in a theater. So I think it's going to be the same thing. I think I'm waiting for the moment where Superman flies to the screen, and I think you're going to be swept back to when we first saw it in 1978.
Well, we'll see. I always go in with that intention. It's like reading a good book.
Yeah.
I open it up eagerly. And it takes years to develop that attention span to stay with it. So you turn pages, the author got to make you turn the page. And then you got to follow the plot, the characters, the whole business. A good movie has a lot of the same qualities to it. That's what I liked about The Last of the Mohicans. It stayed true to the original story that didn't fool around with it.
That's another movie. I remember we saw that in the theater. That's another theatrical film. I've seen The Last of the Mohicans on TV, not recently, not in a long time, but not the. It does.
Manifold Seasons?
No, not Manifold. Last of the Mohicans. It loses something. A lot of these films lose something when you watch it on TV because you have a lot of distractions with TV. The phone rings, you're going to answer the phone.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't have that in the theater. You're a captive audience. So.
That's right.
But anyway, listen, Dad, you stayed on long enough. It's late. I want you to get to bed, but I want to thank you for coming on.
Right. I got to be up really early in the morning to tell you the truth.
Maybe we'll do this once a year. I don't know, but. Definitely love to have you back on, or maybe we'll just start our own podcast and you could tell all these stories. But it's great, and also my dad's a writer. He's a published writer. He does a syndicated stories. Maybe I'll toss a link up there so people can check that out. And I think you wrote about recently the Superman story, right? The radio story. That was a story you wrote about.
Yes.
Yeah. So. I'll put a link, and I'll also put a link up to when the last time my dad called in because I don't think I put that on YouTube officially, but I will. Anyway, Dad, I love you. Happy birthday again.
Oh, thank you very much. I love you too, Tom.
All right. Good night, and sorry for keeping you up. Thanks for staying after hours.
Okay.
Right,
It's my pleasure.
I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Oh, that was fun. Okay, I was trying to get my dad on for a long time, and he really would, and it kind of worked in my favor that the stream moved fast, moved at least a little faster because we had problems with stream elements, and then there was no real massive food deliveries tonight. So I'm glad. I'm really glad I was able to get my dad in. I know a lot of people were asking about that. Somebody mentioned Superman 2 is good, especially the Donner cut. I don't know what crack you're smoking, but the Donner cut is atrocious. In fact, they're showing the Donner cut after Superman, if you care to see it in the theater, but I think the Donner cut's garbage, unfortunately, because I wanted it to be great, but it's just it's got so many problems with it. But hey, thanks for everybody being cool with that and listening to my dad. A lot of people stayed on the stream to listen to my dad. So thanks for hanging out. It's a weird thing sometimes when you end Perry Caravello Live and not talking right about Perry. But I wanted I wanted to do that. And if this was a regular After Hours, I would have answered Perry's call and I would have called him out on his fake little heart attack thing, which, by the way, legit scared me. I was very concerned when I saw that. I thought he might. I didn't necessarily think he was having a heart attack, but I thought he might have gassed himself too much. But no, he wanted to be theatrical and do that, whatever. Somebody mentioned. If Perry was listening to War of the Worlds, he would have believed it. Yeah, I think if Perry would listen to War of the Worlds now, he would believe it. If he ever listened to the radio, I'd get a call like, Tom, I am listening to the radio. There is a guy talking about aliens landing in New Jersey, which I know you are close to. You need to get the hell out of there. They are attacking. It's not that hard, obviously, as you guys know. And boy, oh boy, I don't know if it's just me, but I am getting really sick of the "I'm not going to Potsdam" nonsense from Perry. And it's hard to diffuse because I think people are really hyped on the Steelathon thing, which I think is very funny and very good. But I think it's almost like it was so heavy tonight that he just gets crazy. So I got to figure out a way to diffuse that. Obviously, I know nobody out there believes that Perry's not going. Of course he's going. So don't be concerned at all. But yeah. Somebody says we can always cut Perry loose for a longer After Hours. Yeah, I know. Well, I kind of did that tonight. I did kind of just kick him out. But yeah, it just. And again, I'm different because I'm on a different side of it than you guys. Obviously, I know a lot of things that fatigue me and annoy me are entertaining to you guys, and that's always a difficult balance. And I probably came off as very cantankerous tonight with him, but I wasn't. I really wasn't. I was just annoyed with how. Anyway, it's my own fault. Perry and I was on the way to pick up my dad for his birthday dinner at this wonderful dinner we had last night, and I figured, let me call Perry and just tell him hey, I'm going to be out of commission. Don't bother me tonight. And we had this really nice talk about everything, not everything. We were on the phone for a half an hour, however long it took me to drive to CVS, buy a birthday card, and then go to my dad's. About a half an hour, and. He was apologizing for being a prick lately because he had a long talk with his cousin Mark, and that always helps. And he was this and that, and we were actually talking about moving and how Perry needs to, eventually consider, getting a place, and and that's what everything's been saving up for. All the quote unquote funds that come in through PCL proper, tip comments and everything. That goes to a savings account that is facilitated by me and managed by his cousin. And, eventually I want to have enough for him to put a down payment on a house and, not only a down payment, but, start paying a mortgage or something like that. That's going to be very hard in Southern California. But anyway, so we were realistically talking about him possibly, And I'm not gonna, like in his mind, it's like, you want to send me to, wherever. Like I'm gonna put, oh hey Perry, you're gonna live in Nebraska now. Here you go. This is it. No, of course not. It's gonna be with his, his consent, and all agree on it, and but and then it translated to, hey Perry, the stream is like this, and I know it gets crazy sometimes, but everything's cool. And he's like, I know, and I really appreciate everybody and everything. And he's so logical, and then tonight he just goes right back to the whole, and it's hard. And listen, I'm the idiot here, because how many years have I been working with Perry, and not everything sticks. And also, stream Perry is very different than real Perry. Real Perry can be logical and can be talked to. Stream Perry, especially when he gets 10 comments in a row about RC or this, that, and the other thing. I gotta sometimes see it from his point of view, but it's the threatening to shut down everything that drives me crazy. A friend of mine, Matt, who's a big viewer of PCL, actually listens to After Hours. Matt, I'm going to shout him out. He actually sent me a long, detailed thing about how I can log into his computer and kind of turn off his ability to shut down. And I just have to take the time to implement that. I'm gonna try that. That was it was just getting annoying to me, and then darting away during comments and things like that. But I thought it was it was a weird mix tonight. I felt it on my end. It was just it was a very heavy steal-a-thon thing. Some great stuff. By the way, shout outs to Rap and Randy, and the sleeper of the night to me was the well, I actually got to play it again because it went by so fast, but I don't want to say any names because I know sometimes people like to be anonymous, but the Uncle Rico live media share where Randy was a guest was just phenomenal, as was the Gina Carano sniper thing with Perry, which went by lightning fast. But I want to see if I can play this one real quick. Let me see if I can grab it. This was just phenomenal. It really was. If you missed the mainstream, hopefully you'll catch it tomorrow on Patreon. But yeah, let me see if I can play this real quick. This really blew my mind. Really blew my mind. I was like, hang on one second. Let me find this real quick. Here it is. I just got to play this because it was so amazing.
It's time for the Uncle Rico
It's such an
Show.
honor to have the great Randy Callahan on the Uncle Rico Show today.
Hey there, Randy. So good to see you, buddy.
Great to be with you guys today, and man, I cannot wait to perform my rap songs May 13th in Pottstown. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be great having you on the bill, Randy.
Randy, I've listened to the whole album front to back, and it's a banger. I got to tell you, the crowd is going to love you in Pottsburg. Truthfully, they're going to love you. It's, it's going to blow Perry away.
Yeah, it's going to be great seeing Perry in person again, and I can't wait to just go over and give him a big hug and, catch up on old times.
It's time for the Uncle Rico Show.
That's good for so many reasons. They even got Bob's lousy internet connection right, where if you ever watch Uncle Rico, sometimes he freezes up or whatever. It's just really, so good. So good. I mean, I don't say it enough, but I sit here sometimes and I'm seeing most of the, pretty much all of them for the first time. Jim is the guy that really vets them for, to see if, and then once in a while we'll have one that's on the fence and he'll hey, can you review this? I think this, this shouldn't go on because it's a little, whatever. And I'll look at that. But most of the time, I'm seeing them for the first time and I'm just like, oh my God, that's so good. like really good. The Scarlett Johansson from Denny's was also very good. I'm sorry if and Rappin' Randy is just phenomenal. Just really just great. So that really you know, I was annoyed at certain parts of the stream, but tonight, and not annoyed at the stream, but annoyed at Perry's behavior. Let's say, although he didn't attack anybody, so that was good. Spoiler alert, by the way. Perry doesn't realize this, but he's going to be detailing Tony Hawk's car on Friday. And I did tell Tony to wear a suit of armor, because but I'll talk to Perry about that before. Perry accepted a crowdsource where he's going to show off his car detailing cleaning supplies, and we'll see how well those work. So that'll be fun. Anyway, listen, I should wrap up. I really just wanted to do this to have my dad on. I'm really glad that he was able to come on and tell his stories. My dad's in his early 80s, but he looks like he's in his late 60s. He keeps in great shape, really good shape, and he's a great talker. And maybe I'll have him on again at some point. Maybe. I don't know, maybe we'll pre-record something next time so it doesn't have to stay up. But, yeah, it was nice to be able to have a great meal with him last night and celebrate him. He's definitely been through a lot this past year. We both have, but way more so him. And it was really nice to be able to take him out to a nice dinner. My friend Brian and I treated him, and it was just it was great. It was a great experience, because it's not the kind of place any of us really go to. My friend Brian goes there a lot because he has a friend who takes him there all the time. Who's like, he has a wealthy friend that lives, a friend he grew up with who just has a great job and business expenses these. One of these guys that business expenses these dinners, and I'm like, hey, call your buddy Tom next time. He's throwing around that Amex Black Card at El Molino, but. Yeah, it was fun. So thanks everybody for listening to that and being really cool. Listening to my dad and everything like that. I think he enjoys talking. He enjoys sharing his stories with people, and he's got so many of them that it's nice to have it documented. So that it means a lot to me that he could tell those stories to a bigger audience. And I will link when I upload this After Hours to YouTube on my, because I upload the After Hours to my channel. I never include them on PCL because I don't want to cross streams necessarily. But I'll also include a link to when he was on last year, because his stories last year were a little different. You talked about being a firefighter and a lot of things like that. So anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for hanging in there. I know the people that have been through the whole thing since PCL started, all those almost 8 hours ago now. Thanks for hanging in. Sorry about that issue with Stream Elements for anybody that was trying to donate or a tip comment. I did get a lot of messages, people saying they couldn't do it because you had to log in or whatever. Hopefully that's completely resolved by Friday. Has my father seen Windy City Heat? No, he hasn't. Never seen Perry Caravello live. Barely knows who Perry is. He knows sort of, but he doesn't. And quite frankly, I'd like to keep it that way. But yeah, no, it's not. That wouldn't be for him. So yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out after hours. This was really fun. I was glad to be able to do this in Detox. I'm going to have some talks with Perry this week to try to get him to stop quitting Potsdam as often as he does. But you know how that's going to go. And by the way, if I sounded like I was on my last thread with Perry, because there's a couple people that messaged me during the streams like, oh my God, Tom, it sounds like you're ready to quit and whatever. I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry about that. Actually, a big shout out to Bob Levy, who talked to Perry on the phone for a while and was really, as always, great with Perry, and kind of took some heat off of me, and I was able to go and make a drink for myself and kind of come back. I wasn't listening to it for most of it. Then I turned it back on, and I was able to just kind of relax a little bit and like, okay, I don't have to deal with this maniac every 2 seconds, screaming at the top of his lungs. So, for $1 million, would I live with Perry for at least 5 years? Yes. If it's a big enough house and he lives in a separate part of the house, and we don't have to share a bathroom or anything like that, then yes, of course, I'm not going to turn down $1 million. So yeah, Bob's a good man. Bob really gets Perry, and I'm really glad that he's now in our orbit, or we're in his orbit, I should say. Very nice. Yeah. Somebody has the brilliant comment. Tom, you got to get Perry in some new scenarios. The 92 story will run out of steam soon. Really? Well, you're preaching to the converted. I've gone on record saying that I'm completely donezo with the 92 story. But again, that doesn't seem like it's running out of steam anytime soon, unfortunately. I would love it to, but yeah. It's fine. I said this before, and I'll say it again. PCL will always set its sail to the whims of you guys and what you guys are contributing and talking about. And sometimes things will die down, and sometimes they'll come back. But the 92 thing has always been kind of steadfast. It's just, yeah. In fact, if anything, if you could say anything is going to be here for forever. I mean, even long after PCL. It's the 92 story. So yeah, believe me, I wish it would die down a little, because there are sometimes some streams that just it's 92, 92, 92, 92. So yeah. Anyway, Will's hasn't run out of steam just yet. We'll see. Perry, and one of the reasons Perry was really good last week, yesterday, is he was able to take. I thought he took Robin and her son out. But he went to church with Robin, which I like, by the way, because it's like real religion, not cult religion. And then they went out to lunch at a nice restaurant, and he paid. And it's not something he was able to do a couple of years ago, and I think he was thankful for that. And he was like, and he said, I could be an asshole sometimes, and I could be a prick on the air, but I'm very thankful that I have the funds that I do, and I can do this and that, and I can, so that was nice, and that led to a nice conversation, and I'm hoping to have more nice conversations with that. It's just, it's a balance with everything. So anyway, guys, have a great week. We'll see you on Friday. One of these weeks we'll do another Wednesday stream. I don't think it's going to be next week, because I personally have a lot of things going on next week. But it'll be soon, and yeah, we'll go from there. But Friday should be interesting with Perry detailing Tony Hawk's car. He doesn't know he's detailing Tony Hawk's car yet, but he will be. So that'll be fun, guys. Be safe. Have a great week. If your parents are still alive, make sure you reach out to them and tell them that you love them, because you never know. And I've heard from a lot of people lately, in at least our little community, in our audience, that have either connected or reconnected with family because maybe they heard me talking about stuff with my mom or my family, and I'm very gratified to hear that. I'm gonna butcher this, but somebody wrote me this week, within the last few days, saying that they had a very special aunt who raised them, and mother passed away, was raised by his aunt, and had lost touch with her and reconnected with her because heard me talking about my mom. Anyway, it's little things like that that really make my heart a flutter. Not to sound too cornball, but I'm really gratified by that. So thank you. As crazy as this stream gets, and as vulgar as it can get at sometimes, it's little grounded moments like that are very thing. Danko says, if you need more Perry in your life, on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern in the PCL Discord, check out Joey Bags and Danko, where they host the RBG, and they watch Perry Patreon clips, which is always great. Thanks for everybody who signed up to Patreon. Although at the beginning of the month, there's always like people cancel Patreon and then it builds up again, which I understand. But thanks to anybody. You know, there's more exclusive stuff coming to Patreon soon. But by the way, and congratulations again to Danko and Kelly, who got married on Friday. That's great, and it's I'm really disappointed that they can't make Pottstown, but I don't know. Maybe Perry can fly you guys to Pottstown as a wedding gift. That would be nice. But anyway, thanks guys. I love you guys. Again, thanks for being so cool and respectful when my dad was on. Really appreciate that. And we'll talk. We'll talk on PCL on Friday and maybe in After Hours next week. Who knows? I can't guarantee every Monday night an After Hours because sometimes it's a killer for me on Tuesday. And I think next Tuesday I have to be up kind of early. So we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, thanks guys. PCL for life. See you on Friday. Have a great week.